Have you ever noticed that the harder you push toward your goals, the more elusive they become? Like you're swimming upstream against an invisible current, exhausting yourself while making little progress? What I'm about to share might completely change how you approach transformation. The struggle isn't because you're doing something wrong or lacking commitment. It's because our entire culture has taught us to approach change through resistance and force. Here's what most people don't realize. When you're constantly pushing, striving, and demanding results from the universe, you're actually creating energetic static that interferes with natural manifestation. Think of it like this. Imagine trying to have a conversation while heavy metal music blasts in the background. Your words get lost in the noise. Similarly, when your internal state is filled with desperation, impatience, and control, you're broadcasting mixed signals into the quantum field. The quantum field responds to coherence, not chaos. When part of you wants something desperately, while another part fears you'll never get it, you're sending contradictory messages. The universe receives the full spectrum of your vibration, including the doubt, worry, and attachment to outcomes. This creates what I call energetic interference, a scrambled signal that confuses the very field you're trying to communicate with. Today, I want to introduce you to a completely different approach: quantum shifting through release. This isn't another manifestation technique you need to master. It's actually about unlearning the habit of force and rediscovering your natural ability to align with what you desire. The remarkable thing is that when you stop demanding reality change on your timeline, something extraordinary happens. All that scattered energy you've been dispersing through worry and control begins to consolidate. Your nervous system finds its equilibrium. Your awareness expands beyond limitation. You shift from broadcasting resistance to emanating harmony. The science behind this is fascinating. Your thoughts don't just exist in your head. They create measurable electromagnetic fields. Your emotions generate distinct patterns that can be detected in your heart rhythms and brainwave activity. When you're operating from stress, anxiety, or forced positivity, your heart rhythm becomes chaotic and irregular. Your breathing becomes shallow, and your brainwaves scatter into fragmented patterns. Scientists call this state physiological incoherence, and it literally creates biological static in your energy field. Picture trying to tune into your favorite radio station while multiple frequencies compete for the same wavelength. The message becomes garbled and unclear. This is exactly what happens when you layer positive affirmations over a body that's stuck in survival mode. You might say, "I am worthy," 1,000 times, but if your nervous system is broadcasting unworthiness, that's the signal the quantum field receives most clearly. Quantum shifting isn't something you force into existence. It's a natural state you allow by creating the right internal conditions. It's about harmonizing your mental, emotional, and physical systems so they work together instead of against each other. The process requires 3 simple elements: conscious breathing to calm your physiology, genuine curiosity instead of desperate wanting, and the courage to release your grip on how and when things should unfold. Here's something profound to consider. Every experience in your life has been influenced by the dominant frequency you've been broadcasting. Not the temporary high-vibe moments when you felt inspired, but the baseline energy you return to when nobody's watching. This frequency isn't a reflection of your character or worth. It's simply the result of your habitual thoughts, emotions, and nervous system patterns. Understanding this reveals why willpower and positive thinking alone can't override a chronically stressed energy field. But here's the beautiful part. The moment you experience true coherence, when your breath, heart, and and mind synchronize, everything changes. You feel it immediately, a softening in your body, an expansion in your awareness, a deep knowing that you don't need to force anything into existence. Paradoxically, it's often in this state of complete non-resistance that reality begins to shift in ways that once seemed to require tremendous effort. In the next section, we'll explore the fascinating research that validates this approach. You'll discover how scientists measure coherence, why it's so crucial for energetic transformation, and how this process perfectly aligns with wisdom traditions that have understood the power of surrender for thousands of years. Stay with me, because once you grasp this principle, you'll see that the life you've been struggling to create is already accessible. You just need to tune into its frequency. You might wonder if this idea of shifting through release is just philosophical theory or something that can actually be measured and validated. The beautiful truth is that modern science, quantum physics, and ancient wisdom all converge on the same fundamental principle. Your internal state isn't merely a subjective experience. It's an active force that shapes your reality moment by moment. Let's dive into the research. Scientists studying neurocardiology have made remarkable discoveries about the heart's role in human consciousness. Your heart generates the strongest electromagnetic field in your body, approximately 60 times more powerful than your brain's electrical activity. This field extends 3 to 8 feet beyond your physical body and can be measured using sensitive equipment called magnetocardiograms. When you experience stress, frustration, or any form of emotional turbulence, your heart rhythm becomes erratic and disorganized. This creates what researchers term cardiac incoherence. Cardiac incoherence isn't just uncomfortable. It's a signal that your entire nervous system is operating in survival mode. When your heart rhythm is chaotic, it sends disorganized signals to your brain, causing your thoughts to become scattered and your perception to narrow. Your breathing becomes restricted, stress hormones flood your system, and your immune function becomes compromised. Most importantly for our discussion, this incoherent state broadcasts a frequency of disorder into the quantum field surrounding you. Now contrast this with the state of heart-brain coherence. When you consciously regulate your breathing and cultivate feelings of appreciation, gratitude, or calm, your heart rhythm transforms into smooth, coherent waves. This isn't just relaxation. It's a measurable shift in your bioelectric field. In coherent states, stress hormones like cortisol drop significantly, while beneficial hormones like DHEA increase. Your brain waves synchronize with your heart rhythm, creating what scientists call psychophysiological coherence. From a quantum perspective, coherence creates a stable, powerful signal that interacts with the field of possibilities in ways that incoherence simply cannot. Think of the principle of resonance. When a tuning fork vibrates at a specific frequency, nearby objects begin to vibrate at that same frequency. Your coherent energy field operates similarly, entraining your environment and the quantum potentials around you to match your stable signal. This is why synchronicities increase when you're in coherent states. Unexpected opportunities appear. The right people show up at the perfect time, and solutions emerge from seemingly nowhere. You're not forcing these experiences to happen. You're creating the energetic conditions that allow them to unfold naturally. If this resonates with you so far, I'd love for you to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. This helps us reach more people who are ready for this transformation. Ancient traditions understood this principle long before we had the technology to measure it. In yoga, practitioners speak of reaching samadhi, a state of profound inner unity and peace. Taoist philosophy describes Wu Wei, the art of effortless action, where you move in harmony with the natural flow of existence. Christian mystics wrote about surrender, releasing personal will to align with divine intelligence. What's particularly fascinating is how these ancient practices naturally created the same physiological states that modern science now recognizes as optimal for quantum field interaction. Traditional meditation techniques automatically regulate breathing patterns, which shifts heart rhythm variability. Contemplative prayer generates the same brainwave patterns associated with heightened intuition and expanded awareness. Indigenous ceremonies often incorporate rhythmic breathing and focused intention, the exact combination that creates measurable coherence in bioelectric fields. This convergence of ancient wisdom and modern research reveals something profound. Human beings have always possessed an innate understanding of how to align with quantum principles, even without scientific terminology. Our ancestors knew that forcing outcomes through sheer willpower was far less effective than creating internal harmony and allowing natural intelligence to operate through them. Consider the difference between how a master artist creates versus how a beginner approaches their craft. The beginner grips the brush tightly, forces every stroke, and becomes frustrated when the image doesn't match their mental picture. The master holds the brush lightly, allows their intuition to guide each movement, and remains open to discoveries that emerge during the creative process. The master has learned to collaborate with the medium rather than dominate it. This same principle applies to working with the quantum field. When you approach manifestation like the struggling beginner, gripping tightly to specific outcomes, forcing your energy into predetermined patterns, becoming frustrated when results don't match your timeline, you create resistance that actually slows down the very process you're trying to accelerate. But when you approach quantum shifting like the master artist, holding your intentions lightly, allowing your intuition to guide your actions, remaining open to possibilities beyond your current imagination, you create the energetic conditions where profound transformations can occur naturally and often more beautifully than anything you could have planned. While these traditions used different language, they all recognized the same truth. When you stop fighting reality and align your inner state with peace and trust, reality begins to reorganize itself around your new frequency. This isn't wishful thinking. It's how consciousness and quantum mechanics actually work together. But let me clarify something important. Coherence doesn't mean you never experience challenging emotions or difficult situations. It means you develop the capacity to maintain your center even when life becomes turbulent. You learn to observe fear, doubt, and uncertainty without allowing them to hijack your entire energy system. You return to your baseline of calm more quickly because your nervous system has been trained to recognize coherence as home. This is why quantum shifting isn't about forcing yourself into perpetual positivity. It's about developing the skills, deeper breathing, present moment awareness, and authentic emotional expression that naturally give rise to coherent states. When you understand that the field responds to clarity rather than volume, everything changes. You stop trying to think your way into a new reality and start feeling your way into alignment. The next step is learning to recognize when you're operating from incoherence and developing the ability to gently guide yourself back to coherence again and again. You release the need to control every outcome. You remember that the quantum field is collaborative, not combative. It reflects back the quality of energy you consistently emit. And you realize that the transformation you've been seeking doesn't require external validation. It begins the moment you choose to trust the process. In our next section, I'll walk you through the practical steps of quantum shifting. You'll discover that it's beautifully simple, combining intentional breathing, heart-centered focus, and one powerful question: that dissolves resistance instantly. When you practice this with genuine openness, you'll feel the shift in your energy field within minutes. Stay present, because this is where understanding becomes embodied experience, and where you transition from forcing change to allowing transformation. Now that you understand the science and philosophy underlying coherent states, you're ready to experience quantum shifting directly. This practice isn't complex, but it does require something that challenges most of us: the willingness to stop pushing for results. The moment you cease trying to manipulate reality, you create space for your energy field to naturally reorganize itself into a more harmonious pattern. Before we begin, I want you to understand that this isn't about achieving some perfect state of consciousness. You don't need to eliminate all worry or maintain constant bliss. You don't have to clear your mind completely or feel amazing all the time. What's required is simply your genuine curiosity and openness to experience something different. When you bring that quality of receptive awareness to the practice, it becomes a gateway you can access whenever you need to remember your natural state of flow. Here's how to create this shift. Start by finding a comfortable place to sit where you won't be interrupted for several minutes. You don't need any special setup or ceremonial objects, though you're welcome to create an environment that feels supportive, perhaps dimming the lights or playing gentle background music. What matters most is that you feel safe enough to turn your attention inward. Close your eyes gently or simply soften your gaze downward. Allow your hands to rest naturally, either in your lap or placed softly over your heart. Take a deep, intentional breath through your nose, allowing your abdomen to expand fully rather than breathing only into your chest. Hold this breath for a comfortable moment, then release it slowly through your mouth, letting your shoulders drop as you exhale. Repeat this pattern 3 more times, noticing how each exhale becomes a little longer and more relaxed. This initial step serves as what I call nervous system priming. When you consciously slow and deepen your breathing, you send a clear signal to your body that you're safe and can shift out of vigilance mode. This simple act begins to transform your heart rhythm from chaotic to coherent. If you could observe your electromagnetic field during this process, you'd see the jagged, stressed patterns beginning to smooth into flowing, organized waves. Next, bring your awareness to the area around your heart. You might place your hand there to help focus your attention. Imagine that with each inhalation, you're drawing a warm, gentle light into your heart space. With each exhalation, visualize this light expanding throughout your entire body, creating a calm, luminous field that extends beyond your physical boundaries. Now comes the crucial element. Consciously invite a feeling of appreciation into your awareness. This doesn't need to be an overwhelming emotional experience. It might be as simple as gratitude for the air you're breathing, the support of your chair, or the fact that you've given yourself this moment of peace. The key is authenticity. Even a small, genuine feeling of appreciation creates a powerful shift in your vibrational frequency. Hold this focus gently for 1 to 2 minutes, allowing the feeling to naturally expand without forcing anything. If your mind wanders to other thoughts, simply notice this with kindness and gently return to your breath and the sensation in your heart area. You may begin to notice subtle changes, perhaps a warmth spreading through your chest, a sense of spaciousness, or simply a deepening stillness. These are early signs of coherence beginning to establish itself. Once you feel relatively stable in this state, introduce a single, powerful question that helps dissolve resistance and align your field with possibility. What would it feel like if I completely trusted this process? Don't search for a mental answer or analysis. Instead, allow your body to respond organically. You might experience a gentle softening in your chest, a release of tension in your jaw, or an overall sense of opening and expansion. This embodied response indicates that your nervous system is shifting out of control mode and into receptive awareness. This question is transformative because it bypasses the analytical mind that wants to strategize, manipulate, and predict outcomes. Instead, it guides you into the realm of frequency and feeling, the language that the quantum field actually recognizes and responds to. The field doesn't react to your mental plans or worry patterns. It responds to the vibrational quality you embody in each moment. Think of this process like tuning a musical instrument. You're not forcing the strings into harmony through aggressive adjustment. Instead, you're making gentle, mindful corrections until natural resonance occurs. Sometimes this resonance happens quickly. Other times it develops gradually. Your only responsibility is to remain curious and allow the process to unfold organically. You can use this technique in various situations. In the morning to establish a coherent baseline for your day, when you notice yourself slipping into stress or urgency, or before making important decisions to ensure your actions arise from alignment rather than anxiety. Many people expect dramatic, immediate results the first time they try this approach. While powerful shifts can occur instantly, sudden insights, emotional releases, or profound peace, more often the changes are subtle. You simply feel less constricted, more open, and mysteriously at ease, even when your external circumstances remain unchanged. This is the felt experience of coherence, and from this state, you become remarkably more effective. Not because you're working harder, but because your energy is unified rather than scattered. Let me share an example of how this can manifest in real life. A business owner I worked with had been struggling for months to secure a crucial partnership. She was constantly strategizing, sending follow-up emails, and visualizing successful outcomes. But underneath all her activity was a current of fear. What if this doesn't work out? What will that say about my abilities? She was simultaneously broadcasting desire and doubt, creating energetic confusion that led to stagnation. When she began practicing quantum shifting, her approach transformed completely. Instead of rehearsing scenarios and outcomes, she focused on embodying trust and remaining open to unexpected possibilities. Within a week, new opportunities began emerging. Referrals from unexpected sources, a collaboration she hadn't considered, and the original partnership suddenly moving forward after weeks of silence. The practice didn't magically create what she wanted. It aligned her energy so she could recognize and receive the opportunities that were already available. This is your natural capacity as well. You don't need to force reality into compliance with your agenda. You can learn to attune to the frequency that naturally draws experiences aligned with your highest good. In the next section, we'll explore what happens when you begin living from this coherent state consistently. How your external world starts to reorganize around your new energy pattern, and the subtle indicators that your frequency is stabilizing into a new normal. Stay present. You're much closer to this shift than you might realize. When you begin practicing quantum shifting regularly, you'll discover something that might surprise you initially. Life doesn't necessarily become free from all challenges or obstacles. However, your relationship with these experiences transforms so profoundly that even familiar difficulties feel more manageable, clearer, and filled with possibility. This represents one of the first indicators that your energetic frequency is stabilizing at a new level. you'll notice that your sense of inner peace and confidence no longer depends on external circumstances aligning perfectly. Rather than waiting for reality to prove that you're heading in the right direction, you develop an unshakable inner knowing that your alignment itself is the confirmation you've been seeking. One of the most significant changes you'll observe is the dissolution of chronic urgency. That persistent mental chatter of, "I need to solve this immediately," begins to fade. You find yourself responding thoughtfully to situations instead of reacting impulsively. Your decisions emerge from clarity and wisdom rather than fear and desperation. Even when your mind occasionally returns to old worry patterns, you bounce back to coherence much more quickly. This doesn't mean you become indifferent to outcomes or stop caring about your goals. Instead, you release the exhausting belief that you must control every detail for things to work out favorably. And here's the fascinating paradox. As you let go of the compulsion to micromanage, you often witness more positive movement in your external circumstances. Projects that felt blocked suddenly open up. Difficult conversations resolve more smoothly than expected. Resources, connections, and opportunities begin appearing with greater ease and frequency. This isn't mystical thinking. It's the natural result of energetic alignment. When your signal becomes clear and consistent, reality organizes itself more efficiently around your frequency. In quantum terms, your coherent field influences the collapse of potential into manifest experience. The quality of what emerges directly reflects the stability and authenticity of your vibrational state. Here are several ways this transformation typically manifests in daily life. First, meaningful coincidences multiply significantly. You might think about reconnecting with an old friend, only to run into them unexpectedly that same day. You feel drawn to explore a new area of study or visit an unfamiliar location, only to discover it contains exactly the information or opportunity you needed next. These aren't random occurrences. They're evidence that your energy field is communicating more harmoniously with the larger network of possibility. Second, your relationships undergo natural recalibration. People who were energetically matched to your previous patterns of stress and struggle may gradually fade from your daily experience. Simultaneously, new connections appear that carry a quality of ease, mutual support, and shared vision. You may find yourself drawn to collaborations or friendships that previously seemed beyond your reach, not because you've worked harder to deserve them, but because your frequency now resonates with those experiences. Third, your physical body begins to reflect your internal shifts. Many people report subtle but significant changes in their physiology. More restful sleep, steadier energy throughout the day, and a generally calmer baseline in their nervous system. You might notice that your breathing naturally becomes deeper and more relaxed, or that physical tension releases spontaneously without conscious effort. Fourth, your emotional reactivity decreases noticeably. Challenges and setbacks still occur, but they no longer feel like personal attacks or evidence of your inadequacy. You develop the capacity to observe difficult situations without immediately contracting into fear or resistance. This represents one of the clearest signs that your coherence is becoming your new normal. You maintain perspective and equanimity even when external circumstances fluctuate. Fifth, a profound sense of trust emerges organically. Perhaps the most transformative effect is an embodied knowing that you don't need to prove your worth to anyone, including yourself. You understand at a cellular level that your value isn't determined by achievements, accomplishments, or external validation. This inner trust becomes magnetic, allowing you to take inspired action without the heavy burden of desperation or attachment to specific outcomes. I'm curious, what shifts are you already noticing in your own life as we explore these concepts together? Share your experiences in the comments below. When these shifts begin manifesting in your experience, you might wonder, how can I be certain this is actually happening? The answer is beautifully simple. When your perception, physical responses, and behavioral patterns change in ways you couldn't have forced or faked, you're not imagining progress. You're living proof of transformation. This is why quantum shifting isn't a temporary technique or quick fix that you use once and forget. It's a fundamental way of relating to yourself and the quantum field that deepens and strengthens each time you return to it. The more consistently you cultivate coherence, the more naturally you stabilize in a frequency that attracts experiences aligned with your authentic self and highest potential. Remember, it's completely normal to experience fluctuations in this process. You'll have days when old reactive patterns resurface. You might catch yourself slipping into worry, doubt, or control mode. This is a natural part of integration, not a sign of failure. Each time you notice these patterns and consciously choose to return to coherence, you're reinforcing your new energetic baseline. Think of it like developing physical strength. Every repetition builds greater capacity and resilience. Before we continue to explore potential pitfalls and how to navigate them, I want to invite you to acknowledge any shifts you're already noticing in yourself. The simple act of recognizing and naming your transformation amplifies the very signal you're broadcasting to the quantum field. If you're sensing even subtle changes right now, perhaps a feeling that something within you is reorganizing or opening, take a moment to consciously anchor this awareness. In the comments section, you can write, "I am allowing transformation." These words are more than just a statement. They're a powerful declaration to your nervous system, subconscious mind, and the field of infinite possibility that you're choosing to embody a new way of being. What's beautiful about sharing these quantum consciousness concepts is that it creates an energetic ripple effect that benefits both you and whoever receives this message. When you share this video with someone who's ready for this understanding, you're not just passing along information, you're expanding collective awareness and reinforcing your own integration of these principles. Consider rewatching this tomorrow morning to set a coherent tone for your entire day, or sharing it with someone who might be ready to release their grip on force and control. Stay present with me as we move into the next section, where we'll examine the most common obstacles people encounter when practicing quantum shifting, and how to navigate these challenges without falling back into force and frustration. You'll discover that maintaining coherence doesn't require perfection. It only asks for your willingness to keep returning to presence, one moment at a time, until this becomes your natural state of being. You're already much closer to this transformation than you might imagine. If you've been exploring quantum shifting or any approach to energetic alignment, you've likely noticed how easily the mind attempts to turn it into another form of performance, another way to evaluate, judge, and demonstrate your progress. This tendency is almost unavoidable initially, because our conditioning has trained us to believe that meaningful change requires intense effort and constant self-monitoring. However, this creates one of the most significant paradoxes on the path. The more desperately you pursue a particular state, the more you unconsciously reinforce the feeling that you lack it. The harder you try to force coherence, the more you signal to the quantum field that you're still operating from separation and scarcity. This is why many sincere people become trapped in cycles of disappointment. They begin the practice with genuine intention and experience moments of real peace or clarity. But almost immediately, their analytical mind begins questioning, is this actually working? Why don't I feel more dramatic changes? When will my external reality start shifting? These questions are completely understandable. They arise from the part of us that's been conditioned to measure progress through external metrics and immediate gratification. However, the quantum field operates according to different principles. It responds to authenticity and consistency, not to impatience or self-criticism. Let's examine the most common obstacles that can pull you back into incoherent patterns, along with practical approaches for navigating them with awareness and compassion. First, attempting to manufacture emotions you don't genuinely feel. Many people believe they must generate intense feelings of joy, love, or gratitude to elevate their vibration effectively. But artificially produced emotions create internal conflict and resistance. If you're experiencing doubt, sadness, or anxiety, pretending to feel thankful only adds another layer of inauthenticity to your energy field. Instead, begin with whatever genuine feeling is accessible to you, however small it might seem. The simple relief of taking a conscious breath, the basic appreciation for having a quiet moment, or even gratitude for your willingness to try something new. Authentic emotion, regardless of its intensity, carries far more coherent power than any performed feeling. Second, using the practice as a manipulation strategy to control outcomes. It's natural to hope that aligning your energy will improve your life circumstances, and over time, it genuinely will. However, if your primary motivation is to extract specific results from the field quickly, you've simply replaced one form of force with another. Quantum shifting works most effectively when you approach coherence as valuable in itself. The peace, clarity, and sense of connection you experience are the real treasures. From this foundation, external changes emerge naturally, and often in ways more beautiful than anything you could have planned. Third, becoming obsessively vigilant about monitoring every thought. Once you understand that your mental and emotional patterns influence reality, it's tempting to police your mind constantly. You notice a worried thought and immediately panic, fearing you've contaminated your vibration. But this hyper-control actually creates more incoherence than the original thought did. Thoughts and doubts will continue to arise. This is normal human experience. The key is learning to observe them without identifying completely with them. The quantum field doesn't demand mental perfection. It responds to your overall, consistent frequency patterns over time. Fourth, expecting instantaneous, dramatic transformations. While some shifts can feel immediate, sudden insights, emotional releases, or profound peace, most authentic transformation occurs gradually through incremental changes in perception and physiology. If you constantly measure your progress by how quickly your external circumstances rearrange themselves, you'll overlook the subtle indicators that your frequency is already elevating. Improved sleep quality, increased emotional stability, reduced reactivity to stress. These foundational changes create the platform for larger shifts to manifest. Fifth, abandoning the practice during challenging periods. Paradoxically, the moments when you feel most contracted and off-center are precisely when coherent states can serve you most powerfully. However, many people assume that if they can't access calm feelings naturally during difficult times, the practice isn't effective, so they stop trying. This is actually when returning to the fundamentals becomes most crucial. Conscious breathing, gentle self-awareness, and remembering that your inherent worth doesn't depend on feeling good all the time. Gradually, you develop the capacity to maintain coherence even during turbulent periods. When you recognize these patterns, you can stop interpreting them as personal failures and instead see them as natural parts of the learning process. Opportunities to strengthen your ability to return to presence each time you drift away. This is what true mastery looks like. Not an uninterrupted state of bliss, but a growing willingness to choose alignment repeatedly, regardless of how many times you notice yourself contracting. Understanding these common obstacles also reveals why so many people abandon their spiritual or personal development practices just when they're on the verge of breakthrough. They misinterpret the natural fluctuations of growth as evidence that it's not working, or that they're not doing it right. But these challenges aren't signs of failure. They're actually indicators that real transformation is occurring. When you begin shifting your fundamental frequency, old patterns don't simply disappear overnight. They often resurface with increased intensity as your system attempts to maintain familiar homeostasis. This is your nervous system's way of testing whether you're truly committed to this new way of being, or if you'll retreat back to old, comfortable patterns when things become difficult. Think of it like renovating a house. Initially, everything looks worse than when you started. Walls are torn down, debris is everywhere, and nothing seems to function properly. But this temporary chaos is necessary for creating something beautiful and functional. Similarly, personal transformation often involves periods where your old coping mechanisms no longer work, but your new patterns haven't fully stabilized yet. During these transitional phases, it becomes crucial to have patience and compassion with yourself. Remember that every time you choose to return to coherence after noticing you've slipped into incoherent patterns, you're literally rewiring your nervous system. Neuroscience shows us that repetition creates neural pathways, and each conscious choice to align with coherence strengthens those pathways while weakening the old patterns of stress and force. This is why consistency matters more than perfection in quantum shifting. A brief daily practice maintained over months will create more lasting change than sporadic, intense sessions, followed by long periods of neglect. Your nervous system responds to gentle, consistent signals rather than dramatic but inconsistent efforts. One way to make this process more sustainable is to redefine what success means in this context. Instead of asking, "Did I manifest my desired outcome today?" Try asking, "Did I return to coherence more frequently? Did I notice when I slipped into forcing mode? Did I soften my attachment to results, even briefly?" These questions focus on the only aspect you can directly influence: your internal state and responses. When you make coherence your primary goal, external transformations become inevitable, not because you forced them into existence, but because you finally stopped scattering your energetic signal through worry and control. In our final section, I'll guide you through a complete integration exercise you can practice immediately to feel your frequency stabilizing in real time. You'll also receive an invitation to connect with a community of people committed to living from coherent states, not as occasional peak experiences, but as a sustainable way of being. Stay present, because integration is where understanding becomes embodied wisdom, and where you discover that the quantum field has always been responding to your authentic essence. Now that you've learned the principles underlying quantum shifting and explored how to recognize and navigate common obstacles, it's time to embody this transformation directly. No amount of intellectual understanding can replace the felt experience of coherence within your own body and energy field. This integration practice requires only a few minutes, but can serve as a powerful recalibration tool whenever you feel yourself slipping back into force and struggle. You can return to this process anytime you want to remember how naturally you can align with a more stable, harmonious frequency. Find a comfortable position where you can sit undisturbed for several minutes. You don't need to be in a perfect mental state or have completely cleared your thoughts. Simply bring your willingness to be present with whatever you're experiencing right now, exactly as you are. Gently close your eyes or allow your gaze to soften toward the ground. Let your hands rest wherever feels natural, on your thighs or over your heart. Take a slow, conscious inhalation through your nose, allowing your belly to expand fully rather than breathing only into your upper chest. Pause briefly at the top of the breath, then release it smoothly through your mouth, letting your entire body soften as you exhale. Repeat this pattern 2 more times, noticing how each exhale becomes progressively longer and more releasing. This foundational step creates what I call physiological coherence. When you intentionally regulate your breathing rhythm, you communicate directly with your nervous system that it's safe to shift out of hypervigilance. This simple action begins transforming your heart's rhythm from chaotic to organized. If you could visualize your electromagnetic field during this process, you would observe the scattered, stressed patterns beginning to organize into smooth, flowing waves. Now, direct your attention to the space in the center of your chest. You might place your hand there to enhance your focus. Imagine that each inhalation draws a soft, warm light into your heart area. With each exhalation, visualize this light expanding throughout your entire body and beyond, creating a calm, radiant field that extends into the space around you. Here's where the real transformation occurs. Gently invite a feeling of appreciation into this heart space. This doesn't require an intense emotional experience. It might be as simple as gratitude for the breath flowing into your lungs, the stability of whatever is supporting you, or the fact that you've chosen to give yourself this moment of inner attention. What matters most is authenticity. Even a small, genuine feeling of appreciation creates a significant shift in your vibrational pattern. Maintain this focus gently for 1 to 2 minutes, allowing the feeling to expand organically without any pressure or forcing. When your mind inevitably wanders to other thoughts or concerns, simply notice this with kindness and return your attention to your breath and the sensation in your heart area. You may begin to experience subtle changes, perhaps warmth spreading through your chest, a sense of spaciousness expanding, or simply a deepening stillness and peace. These are the early signs of coherence establishing itself in your system. Once you feel relatively established in this state, introduce one powerful question that dissolves resistance and helps your field align with natural flow. What would it feel like if I trusted that everything is unfolding perfectly? Don't search for a mental answer or try to analyze anything. Instead, allow your body to respond organically to this inquiry. You might notice a gentle softening in your chest, a release of tension in your shoulders or jaw, or an overall sense of opening and expansion throughout your being. This embodied response indicates that your nervous system is shifting from control mode into receptive awareness. This question is profoundly effective because it bypasses the analytical mind that wants to strategize, worry, and predict every possible outcome. Instead, it guides you directly into the realm of frequency and embodied knowing, the language that the quantum field recognizes and responds to most readily. The field doesn't react to your mental plans, worry patterns, or attempts to figure everything out. It responds to the vibrational quality you consistently embody moment by moment. Approach this entire process like tuning a delicate instrument. You're not forcing the strings into harmony through aggressive manipulation. Instead, you're making subtle, mindful adjustments until natural resonance emerges. Sometimes this resonance appears quickly and dramatically. Other times it develops gradually and gently. Your only role is to remain curious, and allow the process to unfold organically at its own pace. You can utilize this technique in various life situations. First thing in the morning, to establish a coherent foundation for your day. Whenever you notice yourself contracting into stress or urgency, or before making important decisions to ensure your actions arise from alignment rather than fear. Many people expect immediate, dramatic results the first time they experience this approach. While powerful shifts can certainly occur instantly, sudden clarity, emotional releases, or profound peace, more commonly, the changes are subtle and cumulative. You simply feel less constricted, more receptive, and mysteriously at ease, even when your external circumstances haven't changed at all. This is the lived experience of coherence, and from this foundation, you become significantly more effective. Not because you're working harder or doing more, but because your energy is unified rather than fragmented. Let me share a real-world example of how this can manifest. An artist I worked with had been struggling for months to gain recognition for her work. She was constantly submitting to galleries, networking aggressively, and visualizing success. However, beneath all her activity was an undercurrent of fear. What if I'm not talented enough? What if I never break through? She was simultaneously broadcasting ambition and insecurity, creating energetic static that seemed to repel the very opportunities she was chasing. When she began practicing quantum shifting, her entire approach transformed. Instead of focusing on outcomes and timelines, she started embodying trust and remaining open to unexpected pathways. Within 2 weeks, things began shifting. An old contact reached out with an exhibition opportunity. A collector discovered her work through social media, and she felt inspired to explore a new artistic direction that led to her most authentic creations yet. The practice didn't magically deliver her predetermined goals. It aligned her energy so she could recognize and receive the opportunities that were already trying to reach her. But what's even more interesting is what happened in the months that followed. As she continued to practice quantum shifting, her relationship with her art itself transformed. She stopped creating from a place of proving her worth or trying to impress others. Instead, her work began flowing from authentic inspiration and genuine curiosity. The quality of her pieces improved dramatically because they were no longer filtered through fear and self-doubt. This illustrates an important principle. When you align with coherent states, you don't just attract different external opportunities, you become a different person. Your actions arise from a fundamentally different place. Your decisions are guided by intuition rather than anxiety. Your creativity flows more freely because it's not constrained by the need to control outcomes. Another client, a business owner, experienced a similar transformation in his leadership style. For years, he had been micromanaging every aspect of his company, believing that constant oversight was necessary for success. He was exhausted, his employees felt stifled, and despite working harder than ever, growth had plateaued. Through quantum shifting practices, he learned to trust both himself and his team more deeply. He began making decisions from intuition rather than fear-based analysis. He created space for others to contribute their gifts instead of trying to control every detail. Within months, not only did company performance improve, but the entire workplace culture transformed. Employees became more engaged, innovative solutions emerged naturally, and the business began growing in ways he had never anticipated. These examples demonstrate that quantum shifting doesn't just change what happens to you, it changes who you become. And from this new state of being, you naturally attract experiences that match your elevated frequency. This same capacity exists within you. You don't need to force reality into compliance with your specific agenda. You can learn to attune to the frequency that naturally attracts experiences aligned with your authentic essence and highest potential. If you've experienced even a subtle shift during this practice, perhaps a feeling that something within you is relaxing, opening, or reorganizing, I want you to recognize this as the beginning of real transformation. Authentic change doesn't always announce itself with fireworks and dramatic breakthroughs. More often, it arrives quietly through moments when you choose to trust the process without demanding immediate proof. This is a practice you can integrate into every aspect of your life. Before important conversations, when you're feeling overwhelmed, whenever you catch yourself trying to control outcomes that are beyond your direct influence, you can pause, breathe consciously, and remember that coherence is always available to you. If you've found value in this exploration, if something within you feels a little clearer, calmer, or more willing to trust the natural unfolding of your life, I want to invite you to stay connected with this community. Subscribing isn't about collecting more techniques or chasing the next spiritual concept. It's about joining a group of people who are committed to living from coherent states, not as occasional peak experiences, but as a sustainable way of being. This is a space where scientific understanding and spiritual wisdom converge, where we can explore these principles with genuine curiosity and depth, and where your evolution is supported and witnessed by others on the same path. Every time you return here, whether to learn something new or simply to remind yourself of what you already know deep within, you're strengthening this frequency not only within yourself, but within our collective field. Thank you for bringing your presence and openness to this experience. Thank you for having the courage to explore what it means to let go of force and trust the inherent intelligence of your own energy field. Continue cultivating coherence in your daily life. Keep observing yourself with compassion and patience. And always remember, the quantum field responds to who you authentically are, not to what you think you need to prove or achieve. Now, to deepen your understanding of how consciousness actively shapes your reality through observation, I recommend watching our exploration of how the double-slit experiment proves you shape reality simply by observing. This builds perfectly on what we've covered about coherent fields influencing quantum possibilities.